Hey, what's up everyone? Craig here, and in this video we're going to talk about plant fertilizers and how and when to fertilize your plants to get the biggest, most colourful, most bold, lush, jungly foliage you can possibly get. So we are all told, water your plants to keep them alive, but water by no means gives plants everything they need to live happy and healthy lives. In fact, even the compost that we plant our plants in, whether they're in a pot or container or in the ground, is only equipped to give your plants the nutrients they need for a 4 to 6 week period. After that, your plant's going to benefit so much if you fertilize it when it's in its growing season. So one of the first points to talk about with plant fertilizers is the fact that you've got organic fertilizer and inorganic chemical fertilizers. I personally sway towards organic fertilizers because I like to keep things as close to the way systems occur in nature. And organic fertilizers don't just support your plant, they support the organisms inside of the soil. And that's whether your plant's growing in a container or in the ground. There is a whole ecosystem below soil level. And with organic fertilizers, when you water it into your plant, or you use the pellets and put it around the root area of your plant, it needs to work in combination with those organisms that live in the soil, and they will break down that fertilizer and make it accessible and available to your plant. So when you use organic fertilizers, you don't just support your plant's health, you support the health of all of those organisms in the ecosystem of your soil. And for me, that is just essential. It's a win-win. However, if you use chemical fertilizers, they are immediately accessible to the plant when you fertilize it, which means your plant will grow quickly, but you are abandoning an entire ecosystem in the soil. Now, obviously, I'm biased, so this is an informational video. Make your own choice. It's absolutely fine. I'll put loads of links in the description below to both organic and inorganic chemical fertilizers, and have a browse, read the reviews and see which one works best for you. So once you've made your decision about organic or inorganic fertilizers, how and when should you apply it to your plant to get the best health out of your plant possible? So quite often when you pick up a fertilizer, there are 3 letters on the back: N, P and K. N is for nitrogen, and nitrogen is a key part in the lush green leaves. If your plant is showing signs of a nitrogen deficiency, it's going to be the yellowing of leaves and all the green parts of the plant starting to look really chlorotic or pale and yellow. Nitrogen is going to really help give that plant a good fertilization and a good feed. P is for phosphorus. Now, phosphorus is an essential building block of plant health. Phosphorus is going to help plants grow things like stems and really help root formation. So phosphorus is key. It doesn't necessarily lean towards foliage plants or flower plants. It's just a key nutrient for healthy plant growth. And K, I'm losing track, is for potassium or potash, and that is definitely leaning more towards fruiting and flowering plants. So if you want big blooms or lots of fruit, which is obviously what follows on from a bloom, then you're going to want a fertilizer that is high in potash or potassium. So whether you're using organic plant fertilizer or inorganic chemical fertilizers, when should you fertilize your plants? Well, the key thing is that plants don't need fertilizing all year round. The majority of plants have a dormant or semi-dormant season. Even houseplants, like these behind me that look evergreen and lush all year, there is a part of the year where they slow down. They're not growing as fast, they're not putting out as many new leaves or flowers, so they won't need that fertilizer, and you can over-fertilize your plants and cause damage. So you start fertilizing your plants when they come into growth. And for garden plants and many houseplants, that's spring. Now, depending which fertilizer you're using, if you're using organic fertilizers and you depend on the microorganisms in the soil to make that goodness available to the plant, you're going to want to start feeding a little bit earlier to allow time for that natural process to happen. If you're using inorganic chemical fertilizers, then those nutrients are immediately available to the plant the second they're around the root system. So you can start fertilizing when you can see visible growth occurring. Fertilize all the way through the season. Some plants are so much hungrier than others. I grow Brugmansia and Datura in my garden, and they are hungry. Someone once told me that they are like the fat kid in a pizza buffet. They just want constant fertilizing and feeding, so I'll do that 2 or 3 times a week. And I will carry on right until we get this first frost and I can see the plant slowing down. The plant starts reacting to the seasons, and we can follow that indication to slow down the fertilization to a point that we stop it in autumn and winter, because the plants aren't growing. They don't need it. Different plants are going to need different types of fertilizer at different stages in their growing pattern. So if you've got foliage plants like these house plants behind me, or evergreen shrubs in your garden, things that you're growing for leaf and foliage interest, they're going to need high nitrogen fertilizer. And for evergreens that don't flower, you can use that nitrogen fertilizer all the way through the season. But for plants that first grow a healthy structure of stems and leaves and then flower later in the season, and again I'll use the Brugmansia or angel trumpet in my garden as an example, I want to encourage it to grow strong and healthy with stems and leaves, and then it starts forming flower buds. And I'll switch into a high potassium or potash fertilizer to encourage flower bud formation and more flowers. You can do this because plants will uptake and utilize different nutrients depending where they are in their life cycle, whether they're forming leaves, roots, stems, flowers, or fruits, and you can adjust your feed accordingly. Now, I know this makes fertilizing plants sound like a headache, but it really isn't. If it's green, give it a high nitrogen feed, and if it flowers, give it a high potassium or potash feed. That's the general rule. If you remember that, your plants are going to look so much happier and healthier. And you can grow enormous plants from small pots because the root system's there to uptake the water and nutrients. They would normally go out into the soil looking for those nutrients and looking for that water, but if you provide it in that small space, you can get away with growing a massive plant from a small pot until the wind comes and blows it over. But that's a different story for a different video. Now, I've talked to you about organic fertilizers and inorganic chemical fertilizers, but you also get liquid feeds, you get pellets, like chicken manure pellets, which are a high nitrogen fertilizer, and you get slow release pellets, which you put into the soil and they slowly dissolve and feed the plant over time. Now, gardeners tend to use these just as a preference. I like to, when I'm planting in my garden or in pots, I'll incorporate some organic pellets. So chicken manure pellets are great to encourage foliage and strong leafy and stem growth. I'll then use a liquid feed throughout the season. So when I'm watering, I can use a specific feed for whatever my plant needs. And like I say, I use organic plant fertilizers. So I use liquid seaweed or nettle feed for high nitrogen plants, and I'll use tomato food for flowering plants and fruiting plants. It really is a gardener's preference. I will put links to both organic and inorganic fertilizers below, and I'll put some slow release, some liquid feed, and some pellets that you can incorporate into your planting holes or into your pots. And click through the links and just read the reviews and see what you think might work best for you. Hopefully, this video has given you an idea of how to fertilize plants to get lovely, strong, healthy growth and flowers. And it's giving you the courage to just buy a couple of fertilizers. And honestly, the difference you will see in your plant's health will be incredible. And it's just a small step that so many people don't do. Plants need more than just water. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Check out the links below. I have a plant shop, so I'll link to that below as well. And hit subscribe if you don't already. If you've got any questions or other tips for anyone watching, put them in the comments section below. I will see you all in the next video. Ciao!